To measure the elongation or the inner diameter of the rod, if there is any, to put this myth to rest for final say. Alright, so I got another delivery of parts from Justin at After Hours Auto Sports. Got the FaNbOi rear main seal set. There's the part number if you need it. Comes with the rear main seal, everything. Also the timing cover set. Part number is right there also. Comes with all the front stuff. I also got a LS2 timing chain set. This is a heavy duty one from Summit brand. So basically I'm going to take this guy and put it on the crank and cam gear. I got to take the cam gear off and put it on as one set. So what I'm going to do is take this off with the 10 mil. Just gotta take this guy off here. Alright. And like that, you're good. So I'm actually going to take this off of here. Chuck it in here. Oops. Alright. So we're going to check the actual timing. As you can see, there's the dot. Getting close. Bam. Like butter. Dot to dot. That's how you want to time it. It's dot to dot. And yeah, basically that's that for timing chain. You can see this one's definitely a thicker upgrade compared to the base LS1 timing chain. Let's see if I can have it in here. There's timing cover bolts. All that stuff. And springs, lifters, oil pump. The good thing about everything is you can label it so you don't have to remember. You label it where you took it off from. I think this is it. Yeah, here it is. You can see how it's kind of singular pitted versus double, but it's still a single roller, so yeah. Alright, so I'm checking end play, and I moved the thrust of the crank forward and zeroed it, and then took the thrust away, and that's what it says. It was 11. I think that's thousandths, but 10 is fine. I'm just going to err on the side of caution. I put a flathead in between the caps because you can't really like grab anywhere on this crank to like pry, you know, and I don't want to pry on the reluctor and cause issues because that's weak already and all that stuff, you know. So I just did that. I want to double check, but it looks like 11,000, so I gotta look up the spec. Alright, so I checked the end play on the front and the back, and I actually used this side lobe of the weight of the crank and pried on it, bracing against this other one to move it, and it actually moved consistently to 4 thousandths. The peak I saw with like tons of force is 5 thousandths, like I was like cranking on it hard. And I did it on the back and the flywheel flange, and also did it on the front just to verify, because 10, 0.010 tenth or 100th, it was like way out of spec, so I double checked, but it seems good. So yeah, I'm gonna try and put the side bolts in, and then we'll call it good today. I'm gonna do the Texas Speed valve train Trunnion upgrade. Got all the parts here and the old rockers. I'm gonna clean them and take them apart. Alright, so once you get the old bearing pressed out, I think you use a 13/16 to catch it, and then a 9/16 to press it out. And then when you buy a kit, for example Texas Speed, they send you 2 of these to press these bearings in. So you press one in first, then slide that in, the bearing or the fulcrum, and then press that one in, and then snap ring them in. Alright, so basically you want to make sure that it's flush so you don't see a gap anywhere, just like so. Doesn't really matter which way you put this in because it rotates. So, but this goes on the top, and they come with rocker bolts too. So basically what you do is you slide this guy through and fit it in like that. And then you take the other side and you put it in and press it in with those 2 presses. These actually fit over the ends, so it'll go in and the press fit. So like this is how you would press them in once it's set up. Go a little bit, then come back off and align this dowel on the bearing or the fulcrum, and then put it back in. So I'll show you. Like so. Also, I'll tell you how, or I'll show you here, how you would make sure that they're pressed correctly. Obviously, step 1, make sure they're flush when you take these off. But here's another easy way too. So what you want to do to make sure that they're pressed in evenly is see if it turns just like that. Freely, with no resistance. You want it to turn, because obviously they're going to be going like this in your engine. So yeah, you want to make sure that there's no resistance, just like how, see how it turns? I just hold it, and the weight lets it rotate. So that's what you want. And then obviously put in your C-clips and spin them with your hand to make sure that they're in. Alright, so after the rocker arm upgrade, I'm going to do these ARP 6006, 134-6006 cracked rod bolts. These are the lesser strength ones, so the 180,000 psi versus the 200. These aren't the Pro Series, these are the regular. So I'm going to actually torque them in the rods and measure the distortion of the, if there is any, put this myth to rest finally. Top to bottom, left to right with dial indicators. What you have to do in order to get this sleeve out is you have to basically pull the bolt head out and then until it gets to right before the edge of the threads, and then rock it back and forth with a what you call channel locks basically. It does kind of mess up the threads, but I'm not planning on reusing these, so that's fine. So yeah, I got 8 to do. 8 of them. Alright, as you can see, here's the difference between the ARP bolt and the factory bolt. It's a little longer. You don't have to cut them down. You just have to pull that sleeve out. Their directions are 40 foot-pounds. I'm not going to put any lube on them yet. I'm going to torque them all at once, but I'm going to put them in and make sure the main caps are aligned, or the rod caps are aligned still. So I'll put them back on. Alright, so I got 4 pistons, bolt sleeves taken out, and I got to do the other 4. It's really not fun. It's pretty difficult. It's just freaking frustrating, but as you can see, all the ones that I've done so far down here, those little sleeves are really freaking pain in the butt. But we'll get her done. Alright, so one thing that I found intriguing just through looking at it is the top bolt's the regular bolt, stock bolt. Bottom bolt's the 8740 ARP bolt, whatever. So these shoulders on the actual rod or whatever where they're threaded go all the way through, but the bolt, the factory bolt, doesn't go all the way down. These ARP bolts actually go all the way down. So I feel like if GM would have did that, they wouldn't have had issues with their first generation rod bolts coming apart. But yeah, so I'm going to actually torque these to the manufacturer's specs and then measure out around with the inner bore gauge or bore diameter, and then caliper it and see what the measurement is and see if this goes out around. Alright everybody, so I'm going to do the stretch method, or sorry, not the stretch method, the torque method, because I don't have a bolt stretch gauge, via ARP's instructions. This is the 6006 bolt, so pause this if you need the instructions. 40 foot-pounds on a torque wrench. I'm going to torque them and untorque them, or take them apart, torque them, and back them off 3 times to get some significant cycle through them. And then I'm going to measure the elongation or the inner diameter of the rod, if there is any, to put this myth to rest for final say. ARP does say to always resize the connecting rods after new bolts, but I feel like that's just a blanket statement to cover their self for having issues. So yeah. Alright, so I'm going to torque those bolts, but first I got to put assembly fastener assembly lubricant. It says under the threads and the head of the bolt. Alright, so I got the bolts in a vise and protected and torqued to 40 foot-pounds, and I'm just going to do all of them and then bring them home and measure the inner diameter. Alright, so starting with this paper that my wife and I put together by measuring the rods, you can see that we did all the pistons based on a bank. So this one here's bank 1, I guess you would consider driver's side bank. So 1, 3, 5, and 7. The difference in measurement is, as you can see, maybe 5 thousandths of an inch, which could be your bearing clearance basically for your oil clearance. So I don't think it's a significant amount of clearance in order to warrant alarm to get rods resized. And also, since these are cracked cap rod designs, you would need 2 thousandths of line honing, and that's as much as you can do without anything else, so that because it's a cracked cap design, you can't do any more than that. So I think it's application specific, but if you do have an issue with a rod, for example, say it's like 200ths out instead of 2 thousandths, I would say get a new rod or just buy a new pair of rods. But with people like K-Tech and ARP saying that this is fine to use and they still make the bolts for the rods, I feel like they're just trying to make money, which is fine. It might be fine just to put them in the engine if it's a stock rebuild and low budget. or just use stock rod bolts. So that's up to you, but I just wanted to make this information available to people that are wondering. So here it is. But thank you for watching, and like and subscribe and tell your friends, and tell me what you think of this video. Thanks.